Rams trade rumors. They're fast approaching the stupidity level of the ones for the Dodgers and Lakers. The first week of spring football practice looks more like a bodybuilder pose down over at USC. And nobody believes Austin Barnes is Mexican. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. It is March 10th, 2023. I am back home, obviously, with the wife. We're going to enjoy a beautiful day. If you like the content that we put out in the meantime about LA sports, click the like button. Click the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. You should hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. That's why I put that channel together in the first place. So, before we go through the news and notes from around LA, look at the scoreboard. Yesterday in the Pac-12 tournament, UCLA took care of business. Amari Bailey, he scores a season-high 26 points. UCLA 80, Colorado 69. USC, however, did not take care of business. They lose to Arizona State 77-72 in the quarterfinal round. Now, to be honest with you, the Trojans, a lot of people consider them a bubble team. I cannot assure you that the Trojans are going into the NCAA tournament. And if they don't, it's their fault. They got exposed yesterday. Poor control of the basketball, poor perimeter defense. Arizona State got them. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. Meanwhile, over in Colorado, Philip Deneau and Adrian Kempe each scored twice. The Kings wind up defeating the Colorado Avalanche 5-2. And LAFC in the CONCACAF Champions League. They defeated a team. We talked about this team yesterday. Nobody knows how to pronounce the team's name. And their fans and players get extremely offended if you can't pronounce LD Abadense or whatever the hell it's called. I know that's wrong too. They would get extremely offended. If you don't want nobody to know how to pronounce, if you don't want to be offended about how people pronounce your team, stop calling your team LD Abdominal Aortic Aneurysm. Stop calling your team, I don't know, LD Acute Lumboplastic Leukemia. It doesn't matter. Abacadabra. I don't care what your team name is. Simplify it. That's what we do in the United States. Meanwhile, LAFC beat the hell out of Team Acute Myeloid Leukemia 3-0. They are probably going to be eliminated when they come to play LAFC in a couple of months up in the United States. And while you guys are up here, take a note or two on a simpler team name. Thanks. Meanwhile, today, UCLA is playing Oregon. That game is at 6 o'clock. And that'll be the semifinals. The winner of that game will go on to the Pac-12 tournament finals to face either Arizona State or Arizona. And Toronto is in town. They are going to play the Lakers at 7:30. D'Angelo Russell should play tonight. D'Angelo Russell likely coming back from injury. Now, Rams general manager Les Snead, he spoke with the press yesterday to define the difference between a team rebuild and what they're calling it a team remodel. And LA, he says, needs to remodel. He described certain players as, quote, weight-bearing walls, such as Matthew Stafford. And I'm listening to this quotes, and all I'm thinking of is Les Snead has been watching way too much Flip or Flop. Les Snead has been watching way too much Home and Garden Network. Dude, you got to mix in a little bit of Sports Center in your TV planning. But the other thing that really got me is he goes out of his way, Snead does, to say how Matthew Stafford is basically as close to untradeable as it gets, how he's an essential part of the Rams foundation, and the press believes that means the Rams are going to trade him at any moment. What? NFL Network analyst Michael Lombardi comes out immediately and says, quote, Matthew Stafford is fully available. They would love to trade him. I know this, unquote. Then your sources are screwed. Your sources are screwy. After the guy goes out there and spends minutes talking about how they are not going to get rid of Matthew Stafford, you think that they're going to go in the next season with a quarterback room of Bryce Perkins and Baker Mayfield and think they're going to get back to the playoffs. Well, isn't that a quirky little thing? Because Snead said Stafford, quote, is definitely someone we're going to rely on, unquote. And, quote, to me, in a rebuild, you would just bulldoze the house down. But when you have someone like Matthew Stafford, players like Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald, at that point you remodel around them, unquote. So we have two diametrically opposed stories here. One is a guy who's trying to be a journalist because he couldn't cut it as an NFL general manager, and the other, an actual NFL general manager who does control where his players go. You tell me. You want to know why I believe Les Snead about not only Matthew Stafford, but all these other rumors about the Rams, which are getting more ridiculous? Well, don't you think that Aaron Donald, who kept threatening retirement even after the Rams won a Super Bowl, and Aaron Donald does not want to take part in a rebuild, and yet we haven't heard a single word out of Aaron Donald. Wouldn't that suggest to you the possibility that he doesn't think there's going to be a rebuild? Right? In addition to that, do you think Sean McVay would come back after possibly retiring if he thought he would have to rebuild the franchise from the ground up? Of course he wouldn't. 3, franchise quarterbacks simply aren't that easy to find. Look at all the teams that didn't have one. Look at all the teams that pay through the nose to get a mediocre or barely capable franchise quarterback just because they want somebody that they know that can control the game, at least, a so-called game manager. Look what happened to the Rams last year after Stafford got injured. You saw what happened with John Wolford. You saw what happened with Bryce Perkins. So no, you don't necessarily want to sit there and just get rid of the only quarterback who gave you a Super Bowl ring since you returned to LA. Now, Snead does admit that he has received phone calls from other teams. Not that he's been making the phone calls to trade, but has received phone calls on about 9 players. So it wouldn't surprise me if somebody asked if Stafford was available. It wouldn't. But in terms of the Rams openly shopping Matthew Stafford, there's no reason to buy it. Former Rams receiver, wedding crasher, and the last guy that you would want to have sitting next to you on Southwest Airlines, Odell Beckham Jr. He is going to be holding a workout for NFL teams today. Odell Beckham Jr., he missed all of last year as a result of a torn ACL that he had during the Super Bowl of 2021. That one, the Rams obviously won. He was a Rams hero then, and since then, he's kind of toxic. But that's his life. Also, the Rams pick up 4 compensatory picks in the upcoming NFL draft. They get 3 in round 5, 1 of them in round 7. This came as a result of all the players that the Rams lost. They in free agency after winning the Super Bowl. That would include Von Miller, Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Corbett, Darius Williams, and Ogbania Okoronkwo. And I know I mispronounced that, no disrespect intended. Anyway, the Rams have 10 total picks in the upcoming draft. So, scribes get a limited look at spring football practice for college. So the impressions made for USC, what are the scribes, what's all that they want to talk about? How buff everybody got. That's great. Don't know if we know if the pass rush is going to be any improved at all. All we know is past the baby oil and the banana hammocks, everybody's flexing. But we do have some details that are kind of interesting if we try to extrapolate a little bit. Florida offensive line transfer Michael Tarkin has been lining up at left tackle with the Trojans, whereas he played right tackle when he was over with the Gators. Also, that Tarkin and a transfer from Washington State, Jarrett Kingston, they both could make the offensive line better than the damn good one the Trojans had last year. As a result of the work from both Tarkin and Kingston, that could mean a starter from last year, Cortland Ford, could wind up on the bench. Also, they have a defensive analyst named Bookie Radley Hines, who has been working a lot with the defensive backs. And as a result, that's also where everybody is allegedly all buffed out. Hines and other scribes have noticed that Jacoby Covington, he basically looks like a damn Adonis out there. Wide receiver coach Dennis Simmons says that freshman wide receiver Zachariah Branch has, quote, confidence driven by the fact he works his butt off, unquote. So a freshman might be getting some good playing time with SC in the upcoming season. And again, at least by the visual appearances, all the scribes were amazed at how much bigger the Trojans' defensive line is. Whether they get to the quarterback or whether they're too busy doing curls, your guess is as good as mine. The LA Times talked to some of the players who are going to the World Baseball Classic, and that includes Dodgers starter Julio Urias. Urias, who is playing for Team Mexico, was actually quite surprised because his catcher is going to be Austin Barnes. And Julio Urias had no idea that Austin Barnes was Mexican, which is great because none of us had any idea Austin Barnes is Mexican. Nobody. The man's name is Austin Barnes. Maybe that's a hint that nobody thought that the poor guy was Mexican. Now, I'm not trying to be disrespectful of Austin Barnes, and I'm not even trying to be disrespectful of Mexicans. Saying that alone sounds racist. It's not my intent. But I will say this, another coach who actually coaches over at the Angels, Mike Gallego, said, and by the way, Gallego, you could assume he's Latino, quote, I've never heard of a Mexican named Barnes, unquote. So make all the jokes you want, and if somebody wants to punch you in the face, just say, hey, Mike Gallego approved it. Austin Barnes, the hidden Mexican of Dodger lore. I will say, though, if the Americans don't win the World Baseball Classic, I'd be okay with Mexico winning. Also, over at Dodgers spring training camp, Andrew Friedman says he is confident Jason Hayward will make the team. Friedman said Hayward, quote, has proved himself, has powered himself into our hitting guys. His swing looks really good right now, and he adds in the clubhouse what he adds in the clubhouse has been incredible as well, unquote. Forgive me, still half asleep. We mentioned earlier that D'Angelo Russell should play tonight for the Lakers. Mo Bamba, however, is not going to be part of the Laker plans for a while. He is going to be out at least 4 weeks. How the hell do all these people with the Lakers, all these fellas with the Lakers, wind up with foot and ankle problems? How is this happening? All the way from the starting lineup all the way to the end of the bench. Now, Bamba came over in a trade with Orlando, and he hasn't played a lot ever since he arrived in LA. He averages about 11 minutes per game and only 4.4 points. So, not a huge loss for the Lakers. We certainly hope that the man gets well soon. You know, it's not like they're going to amputate the foot. But what is it with all these Lakers players wind up getting their feet and ankles hurt? Anybody have an idea on that? Would you let me know what you think in the comments thread? Let me know if you think the Rams might even conceive of trading Matthew Stafford. Let me know what you think of the weight rooms over at USC. And if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortell Queso production. Take care.